So in today's video, I wanted to do something that I've seen quite a few people doing on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I've seen everyone doing it at the moment and I really wanted to join in. And that is 24 books that I would like to read in 2024. You may have looked at the thumbnail and these are all the books that I want to talk about. And you may be thinking, that looks like a lot more than 24 books. That's because it is. I have two series here that I want to talk about and I decided to get the whole series out instead of just the first book. I do not think that I will actually read every single one of these books purely because there are always new releases. I'm always discovering new books and I'm a mood reader, so I may read something else if I'm in the mood for it. I may get out of the mood to read these books and then not read them. But that being said, these are the books that I would like to read this year. So I'm going to start off with the series that I want to read. So the first series that I would like to read this year is the Throne of Glass series. So as you can see, this is a super long series with some very thick books in this. So I know I expect myself to read the entire series, although when I do read it, I think I would like to read them all back to back. So I might end up doing that this year, but we'll see. I may do a reading vlog of when I read all of these, potentially, but we'll see. So yeah, I at least want to read the first one this year, which is Throne of Glass. I read the A Court of Thorns and Roses series a while ago. I think I read the first book in 2021 and loved it, and then I finished the last book that's out. I think there's going to be some more books, but the last book that's out I read in 2020, like I don't know what month of the year it was, but I read it in 2020. I love that series so much. It was/is my favorite series, purely just because I did read the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy recently, and that is definitely in competition for my top series now because I absolutely loved that series. I have heard a lot of people say that Throne of Glass is better than A Court of Thorns and Roses, so see what happens when I read it. The next series that I would like to read this year is the Shadamy series. I have been wanting to read this series for a long time. Ignore the fact I know the books are out of order, so just ignore that. But I've wanted to read this series for a really, really long time and I've just never gotten around to it. I'm really excited to finally read this. Oh gosh. I have been looking forward to reading this series for so long because I see people talk about this all the time and I feel like I will love it, but I just haven't gotten around to it. So that will happen hopefully at some point this year, and again I may do a reading vlog when I read Shadamy because I would really like to document my thoughts as I'm going with both of these series. Also, I am aware that I've purchased two series and I haven't read either of them. I don't want to talk about it, okay? On to all of the other books that I would like to read this year. Although a lot of these are in series, I'm not going to be talking about the whole series because I just want to read the first book. To start off with, I want to talk about a book dash series that I am ashamed to say that I have not read this series, and that is The Hunger Games. I know, I don't want to hear it. When the Hunger Games books were coming out and when the movies were coming out, I was in my romance novel era. It was me in my early teens and all I wanted to read was romance books. I was predominantly a fantasy girly growing up, like as a child. I read the whole Harry Potter series and the whole Percy Jackson series when I was like 9, 10, 11 years old. But then when I went into my early teens, and you know, when you're a little girl and you're in your teens, all you want to read is romance novels. Like that's all you want. You want a boyfriend, all you're thinking about is boys. And so I went into my romance era. Now I read a good mix of both, but I still haven't read The Hunger Games. And with the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes coming out this year, I watched the movie and I loved it. I have seen all of the Hunger Games movies, so I don't want to hear it. Yeah, so it's made me want to read the books. I also got gifted them for my birthday in October, so I have the whole series back there. And so yeah, this is one book that I would really, really love to read this year. I may end up listening to the audiobook, but we'll see. I would really like to physically read it. Next, we have a book that hasn't actually been on my TBR for that long, but I think I will really, really like it. I've seen a lot of booktubers recommend this book, and that is The Serpent and the Wings of the Night. and I have heard so many good things about this book. And I recently read Fourth Wing. Well, not that recently, it was like a couple months ago. And I loved that book, and I saw a video saying that if you liked Fourth Wing, to read this. So that's why I'm thinking of reading this. We'll see how this goes, but I am really excited and I would really love to read this year. Next is another book that I've seen everyone talk about, and I am so excited to read this. I've seen people talk about it on TikTok and YouTube, and I've had friends recommend this to me, and that is Powerless. I have seen this book everywhere. I've heard people talk about it, I've heard people rave about it, and all I want to do is read it. But being a mood reader, I have to wait till I'm in the mood for it. And a lot of the time I'll be in the mood to read a book while I'm in the middle of reading another book, but I want to finish that book first, and by the time I finish that book, I'm not in the mood to read it anymore. So I'm going to wait until I'm in the mood to read this, but I feel like I'm going to love this book. I'm sensing hopefully a 5-star read in this one, but I don't want to speak too soon, so we'll see how that goes. The next book that I'm going to talk about has been on my TBR for I think like maybe like 2 years now, and that is The Wrath and the Dawn. I have been wanting to read this for so long, and I'll get in the mood and out of the mood and in the mood, and I just never pick it up. I think, is this like a really long series, or am I like, hold on, I want to Google this, because I think one of the reasons why I've been avoiding this book is because I thought it was in a really long series. But I saw someone talking about it the other day and saying that it was a duology, and now I'm confused. Okay, so there's 2 novellas, then this book, then another novella, and then the second book. Okay, so I was putting this book off for no reason. So yeah, this is another one that I really want to read this year. Another book that I would like to read this year, and this has also been on my TBR for a really long time. One of my friends read it back in 2021, I think, and she really liked it, and that is The Prison Healer. And I also saw, I can't remember who it was, I saw someone on BookTube that read it recently and really liked the whole series. So this is another one that I would love to read this year. This next book I have been putting off for so long because it is a very thick book. She is huge, and so I've been putting it off. However, it has been on my TBR for ages, and I would really like to finally get around to this book this year, and that is The Priory of the Orange Tree. I have heard so many good things about this book, and actually for a period of time I didn't actually know what it was about, and when I bought it I didn't know what it was about, but someone had recommended it to me, so I just thought I'll buy it. And then I found out what it was about, and now I am really excited to finally read it, so hoping to get this one read this year. I'm scared. How many pages is it? Oh my gosh, it's like almost 800 pages. So that's a bit scary, but it's okay because it's going to be a good book. I'm sensing this one's going to be a good one. Okay, so the next book I'm going to be talking about is Dance of Thieves. And I have had this on my TBR for ages, and I would really like to read this. But the only thing is, I also have The Kiss of Deception, which I believe is in the same universe but comes before Dance of Thieves. And I've seen a few people say to read The Kiss of Deception and like that trilogy before reading this book. So I would really like to read Dance of Thieves. I don't know if I'm going to read the other one first or not, but I may, because I've already got the first book in the other trilogy, so we'll see. But this is my priority. The next book I'm going to talk about is a series, and it hasn't been on my TBR that long, but it is one that I would still really like to read, and that is the Plated Prisoner series. I bought this series based off of a friend's recommendation and didn't actually know what it was about, and then found out what it was about, and it sounds really interesting, so I'm very excited to read this one. Okay, so the next book I'm going to talk about I've actually read a bit of already. I got about this far into it, and I don't know why I didn't finish it, because it was a while ago now. I can't remember why I didn't finish it, but I stopped reading it, and now I cannot for the life of me get the motivation to read it again. But I would really like to try this year because I just wanna finish it, you know. And that is Kingdom of the Wicked, and I would like to finally finish this year and potentially read the other 2 books in the series, but we'll see what happens. The next book that I would like to talk about has only been on my TBR for a couple of months now, and I have never actually read a book by this author, but they are a very well-known author in the fantasy world, and I also generally steer away from books written by men, but you know what, I wanted to give this a try. I had a couple of people recommend this to me and I've seen people talking about it, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. And this is the first book in the Mistborn series, and I would really like to try out Brandon Sanderson. I just had a little flick through and the text is super bold and like big, which I love, but it's also a little bit on the bigger side. That's okay. I'm a little bit scared about reading this one, to be honest, because it's quite a big series, but I think I'm gonna love it. I've heard nothing but good things about this book, so, and this series in general, so I'm gonna give this one a go. Okay, so that was the fantasy section. I didn't actually intend on doing it in sections like this, but when I took them off my shelves, I have, this is like my fantasy shelf, and then I have my romance shelf over there, and I sort of just took them off in sections, so I guess we're doing them in sections now. But on to the romance portion of these books. So the first book that I would like to read, I don't know if this really counts as a romance, but it's in my middle section, which is like my miscellaneous section, and I've read a lot of other books by this author and I absolutely love her writing style, and that is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I started off by reading The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and then I read Daisy Jones and the Six, and then I read Malibu Rising, and I think out of those three, my favorite, I think my favorite would be Malibu Rising, but I'm not too sure. I haven't read them for a while, so I can't really remember which one I liked the most. But I also read Maybe in Another Life, and I really enjoyed that one as well. I pretty much enjoyed every single book that I've read by Taylor Jenkins Reid. But I've been a little bit scared of reading this one because it's about tennis, and I know nothing about tennis, and I don't really have much interest in tennis, so I'm worried that this book's gonna bore me. And I also didn't like Carrie Soto's character when she was in Malibu Rising. I don't know, I'm a little nervous about this one, but I'm also really excited to read it because I love Taylor Jenkins Reid and it's not that long, so I don't know. The next book that I would like to read, I've been putting off for such a long time because there's some tropes in this that I absolutely hate in books, and I know that it's in there, and I don't want to hate this book because I loved the other book I've read by this author, and that is Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. I loved Normal People so much. It was one of my favorite books when I read it, and I absolutely adored it, and I really want to read Conversations with Friends, but I've been putting it off for like 2 years now because I know that it has the cheating trope in it, and I really hate cheating trope. I would really like to read it this year because I think that I'll enjoy it, but the cheating trope threw me off and made me not want to read it. But you know what, I'm gonna stick it out. I think I'll probably end up enjoying it anyway. The next book I'm going to talk about hasn't been on my TBR for very long, but I have been recommended this book over and over again. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's talking about this whole series, but I would just like to read the first book and see if it's my vibe. And you know what, I actually did a good thing with this one. I only bought the first book. I haven't bought any of the other books in the series, so you know what, round of applause to me. Normally I'll buy the whole series without knowing if I like it or not, but with this one I didn't do that, and that is Flawless, which is the first book in the Chestnut Springs series, and everyone is talking about this book. I'm so excited to read this. I really hope I like it because I went through a bit of a romance slump for a period of time and all I was reading is fantasy. But then I just read Wildfire by Hannah Grace and absolutely loved it. And you know what? Now I'm in a romance mood again and I would love to read some good romance books. And so I'm really hoping that I like this one. This next book is one that has been on my TBR for ages and I've wanted to read it for so long, but I'm scared because I think it's going to be heartbreaking and I think it's going to like tear my heart out and shred my soul into a million pieces, and I think I'm going to bawl my eyes out, so I've been avoiding it because I'm scared of it, but I think I'll really like it. And that is Archer's Voice. I feel like I've heard that you either love this or hate this, and I really hope I love it. I think based off the people that I know who have read this and their taste in books, I think I will like it, but you never know. I'm just scared because I don't want to get my heart broken, and I feel like this book's gonna break my heart, you know? This book hasn't been on my TBR for very long, but it looks like something that I'm either gonna love or hate, and that is Every Summer After. I've heard a lot of people talk about this book. A lot of people recommend it and a lot of people don't recommend it. But I got gifted it for my birthday and I am very, very excited, and I'm gonna read it, see what happens. Okay, so this next book that I'm going to talk about has quite literally been on my TBR for like 2-3 years now, and that is 7 Days in June. I have not seen many people talk about this book. I've seen a few people talk about it and I know it's quite a popular book, but I haven't seen many people recommend it. But I picked it up in the bookstore because I read the back and it sounded good, so I feel like this might make me cry too. Anyway, I do really want to read this. The next book that I would like to read this year is Better Than the Movies. I have seen so many people talk about this, and this actually isn't my copy. This copy is my friend Gracie's. It has her annotations in it. She sent it to me because she wanted me to also annotate it, which I thought was super cute. This book is going to be full of annotations from both of us, which I'm super excited for. So I'm hoping to read this book this year, and then I think I'll ship it back to her. This next book also hasn't been on my TBR for that long, but it is another one that I'm hoping to read over summer, and that is The Summer of Broken Rules. I've heard lots of good things about this book. I haven't heard many bad things, but there's probably bad things about it out there somewhere. I am really, really excited to read this because I love books set in summer. I will hopefully read this over the summer period. I just need to wait till I'm in the mood for it, to be honest. The next book that I'm going to talk about, well, the next two books haven't really been on my TBR that long. One of them has only been on my TBR since December, which is like a month, so it has not been on my TBR long, but since it's gone on my TBR, I am very excited to read it and I would really like to read it this year, and that is Magnolia Parks. A lot of people have started saying that it gives like Gossip Girl vibes, and I love Gossip Girl. It's one of my favorite TV shows, so I'm gonna read it and we'll see how it goes. This next book has been on my TBR for about a year, and when I bought it, I know I do this a lot, okay, but I bought it without knowing what it was about, and you know what? I found out what it was about a couple of days ago. And so it got bumped up on my TBR because, well, it sounds really good. And that is When in Rome. It's not a very long book. It's quite a short book. So I am very excited to read this one. I hope that I enjoy it as much as I think I'm going to. I actually hope that with all of these books. But yeah, so that's that one. Lastly, this book has been on my TBR since like 2021. So I think it's been about 3 years that this book has been on my TBR. I did try to start reading it, but I'll explain that in a second. So the book is Beach Read, and this is actually the last book that I'm going to talk about today. The reason why I haven't read this yet is because I was trying to do a thing where I only read this when I was at the beach, and clearly that didn't work out because that was as much as I read. But I do think I will really enjoy this, so I'm gonna hopefully read this at some point this year, hopefully in summer, because it's a beach read. And that is the last book, so I'm just gonna count and double check there was 24. So 1 for Throne of Glass, 2 for Shadamy, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 22, 23. I only did 23 books. Oh my gosh, I need a 24th book. Wait, did I have one on my list that I didn't grab? Oh, I forgot one. Okay, so we're going back to fantasy for this book, but I actually forgot to grab a book when I read my list. This book has been on my TBR for, I don't know how long. It's not been as long as some books. It's sort of like that middle range. That is Crescent City. I should have talked about this in relation to Throne of Glass. I forgot about it, so moving on from that, I would love to read this book because I just love Sarah J Maas's writing style, and this is her newest series that's come out, and I think I want to read Throne of Glass first and then read this. If I get through all of Throne of Glass this year, then I'll read this, but if not, I might leave this one till next year, but we'll see what happens. There we have it. That is finally the 24 books that I want to read in 2024, including the 2 series. That's all I have for today's video. I hope everybody is having a wonderful new year. I'll see you all next time. Bye.